Welcome, everyone. If you know anything about Benzinga, you know that we love to get questions answered from executives from publicly traded company themselves. And we've got a great interview here with Joe Bergera, who is the CEO of Iteris. Ticker on the NASDAQ is ITI. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here.
There's so much I want to get to. I know you've got news coming out as well. But before we look under the hood, if you could explain it to me like I'm five, what is it that your company does?
We provide a comprehensive cloud-enabled platform, which we brand as our Iteris ClearMobility platform. And what we're focused on is trying to address those immediate friction points with today's mobility infrastructure, but also to enable what we call tomorrow's connected transportation network.
Now, what was interesting when we were looking up, information and research for this interview is why is a more connected, data-driven transportation network important? And what technology do you typically employ to make it so? Because I wasn't expecting that personally.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody thinks about transportation and you immediately think about physical infrastructure, right? So it's kind of a multi-part answer to your question. The first part is that the physical infrastructure, especially in like the US, for example, is largely built out. There's just not a lot of additional room to add more physical infrastructure. So the logical opportunity is to figure out how do you deploy technology to get better throughput, improve safety, drive friction out of the system. And there's been a lot of investment in technology, frankly, over the last decade. But at least initially, a lot of that investment went into these discrete technologies, which ended up creating silos. And so right now, everybody's focused on how do you overcome those silos? How do you eliminate that friction? You see the emergence of connected and automated vehicles, and then also vehicle electrification. And in order to realize the promise of those new technologies, it's really important that you open up that infrastructure to the cloud to facilitate communication, or what's called integration, between the infrastructure and the vehicles.
Now, there's three things I want to focus on based on your answer there. You talked about optimizing, and then you also talked about ClearMobility platform. Sometimes you have situations where the hardware and the software don't exactly line up, right? So how do the individual parts of the system, I'm talking about the hardware and the software, when it comes to the ClearMobility platform, how do they fit together?
Yeah, exactly. What you're talking about is a huge problem. And recognizing that, we've been focused on creating a unified platform that brings a broad range of mobility infrastructure management capabilities together in a way that they can interoperate seamlessly. And we do that through our platform. And the way to think about the platform is it's multi-leveled. So first of all, at the kind of base level of the platform, we have our various edge devices. And those include intersection detection sensors, fixed travel time sensors, and fixed connected vehicle sensors. And then above that, we've got our cloud computing service layer. And that includes our mobility data processing engine, our mobility algorithms, and applied artificial intelligence. And then sitting above that, we've got various mobility management services. And those include routing and navigation, as well as infrastructure to vehicle integration. There's several other mobility management services that we support at that level. And then those capabilities are consumed by our application layer. So we've got various application services that customers consume on a software as a service basis. And then to make all that work, we have an open API framework that enables seamless integration across the various platform levels among the application services, and then also enable communication between ClearMobility and third-party data sources and other third-party technologies. And then additionally, we wrap a unique, highly curated set of multidisciplinary expertise around the ClearMobility platform to facilitate the implementation, the use, and the benefits of the platform. And we've designed the ClearMobility platform so that users are incentivized to contribute, their geolocation information and road conditions and signal phase timing and event and other mobility data when they participate in the platform. And one of the huge benefits of that is that it essentially creates an ecosystem or a network effect. And what we found is that it generates near 100% customer loyalty as a result of the benefits of participating in that ecosystem.
You mentioned the users, and I'll want to get to that before I talk about the finances. So what kind of clients do you typically primarily end up serving?
Yeah, so historically, we've been focused essentially exclusively on the public sector. Today, still about 90% of our revenue comes from public agencies, and those agencies include federal, state, and local agencies, transportation agencies in the US, but also comparable transportation agencies in Canada, like provincial agencies, as well as the national equivalent of the US Department of Transportation, and then the same in Mexico. Additionally, we sell to various transportation agencies in other international markets as well, throughout Central America, South America, even the Middle East, and in parts of Europe. Um, Additionally, we're finding that a lot of commercial enterprises see the value of participating in this ecosystem. And so we're seeing a lot of inbound interest from automotive OEMs, automobile insurance companies, media companies, and mapping technology companies. And the reason that they're interested is that their business models have various dependencies on understanding the transportation infrastructure and like how it's operating in real time and also historically, so they can make better real time and planning decisions. And in order for them to get that same kind of information, they would need to integrate with the various devices, tens of thousands of those deployed out there in the infrastructure, and hundreds of different agencies, right? And instead of having all those point-to-point integrations, they can integrate with our platform, which essentially provides a nexus point. And so they see huge operational benefits for participating in our ecosystem. And so today, about 10% of our total revenue comes from various commercial entities, and we see that revenue contribution growing dramatically over the next several years.
Now, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, we've talked about what it is you do, how you do it, and who you do it for. Let's talk about the money. Specifically, I
For
believe your
sure.
I believe your Q2 financials showed an 11% increase year over year. How can we go ahead and expect this to continue growing from here on out, though?
Yeah, well, actually, 11% growth is kind of lower than what we've seen in the most recent periods. That and 11%, which as you've noted was the most recent quarter, is actually consistent with the midpoint of our revenue guidance for the current year. Actually, the reason it's a little bit lighter than what we've been, reporting in the most recent periods is that we had some kind of unusual prior period comparables, and it was due to prior supply chain issues. And then as those began to ease, we were able to ship a lot of sensors. And so we saw, unusual rates of revenue growth. And again, the prior year comparables are kind of skewed. But anyway, our Vision 2027 target organic revenue is 245 million to 265 million. And that's assuming a 14% revenue CAGR at the midpoint of that range, which is consistent with our organic revenue growth for the last few years. And so we feel very confident that we'll continue to experience that rate of growth. Again, that being said, I do want to note that we do have a couple unusual comparables. And so in the December 31 period and the March 31 period of this year, our revenue growth on a year over year basis is going to be lighter, probably in the low to mid single digits. But again, for the year, we expect that growth to come in at 11%. That's consistent with the midpoint of our current guidance range. And that's actually relatively low compared to recent organic growth. And again, over the long term, we expect that organic growth to come in at about 14%.
Let's talk about the new sibling on the block. More specifically, I'm talking about AI and how in the next 10 years you believe it'll impact the transportation industry.
Yeah, for sure. And AI is huge. It's really going to change everything. And that's certainly true in transportation as well. Recognizing that, we've been super focused on AI for at least the last 3 years. And I talked to you about the fact that we've got this ClearMobility platform and it's a layered architecture. We've actually been using AI at virtually every layer of that architecture for some time. So, for example, we use various forms of machine learning at the edge, to better identify and classify objects that our sensors are picking up. And then we also collect literally petabytes of mobility data that's coming from our own sensors, which we ingest in our cloud, but also from various third parties like agency systems and other third-party data sources. And then we use AI to normalize, standardize, and enrich those data sets to conform to international standards. One of the problems in our sector is some people are really good at collecting data, but then they try to apply AI against it, but they get spurious results because the data isn't relevant or standardized. So we're super focused on that. And then after having done that in the cloud, we then apply AI to those various large data sets to predict future events. And that would be like such as collisions and congestion. And then we recommend countermeasures that individual drivers or agencies can make in order to address those situations. Anyway, we expect AI is going to continue to develop really rapidly, in every sector, of course, but also certainly in transportation. And as a result, we'd expect that to probably disrupt some of the existing product categories. And a couple categories I think are going to be really impacted by this in our space would be like signal controllers, and then also advanced traveler management systems. But in addition, more broadly, we expect that the advances in AI are going to accelerate the evolution of autonomous vehicles, infrastructure to vehicle integration, which is related to that, and then also, ultimately accelerate the adoption of the evolution of the connected transportation network. So overall, AI is going to be very transformative in our marketplace, but it's something that we've been focused on for over 3 years and will continue to invest in. Frankly, think we're at the head of the curve.
I couldn't agree more with how rapidly AI has advanced itself. I mean, it started with text. Now you've got video and imaging that's kind of gone from there as well. I mean, let's be honest, soon enough, you might be interviewed by an AI next time. But for now,
perhaps I am right now.
It's very detailed. We wrote a great coding on it. But for now, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Of course, my pleasure.
Absolutely. And folks, that is Joe Bergera, who is the CEO of Iteris. Ticker on the NASDAQ is ITI. And remember, for all things finance, visit benzinga.com.